5 must-know tips for those of you who are starting out in public speaking. Despite being an introvert by nature, over the past couple of years, my job has required me to do a whole lot of public speaking, and it can be really intimidating. So I put together my 5 must-know tips for those of you who are starting out in public speaking, and if you hang around at the end of the video, I'll give you some practical examples. Number 1, open with a story. Don't open with, "Thank you for having me, it's so lovely to be here." Jump in with a story, it'll engage your audience. And the other thing that it does for you is it gives you time to fall into your rhythm of the speech as well, which is a really great thing so you can deliver well and be comfortable on stage. Number 2, eliminate as many of the fears that you have about getting on stage as you can before you get on stage. So for me, my biggest fear is that I would get on stage and my mind will go blank and I'll have nothing to say to an audience of 500 people. So for me, the way I got around that is I would write my speeches word for word and take those notes with me up on stage. It did a couple of things for me. One is it gave me a safety net. So if that moment did come, I could just look down and read off the page. And perhaps not surprisingly, the moment never did come because I had that confidence there with the notes. The second thing that it does do, and why I recommend that you do this, is because then you've already thought about how you will say everything, and those familiar sort of turn of phrase will come up for you while you're delivering the speech, and you'll seem much more natural. Number 3, know your content. You can't be surprised by the next slide that's coming up. You have to have the audience trust you, and that comes from them believing that you know what you're going to say next. So one way that I got around this is that I would take up those notes that I mentioned in the comment before, but I would put big titles at the top of each paragraph, which would say slide 1, and then just one word that would reference the picture on the slide, so that I could just glance down and know what was coming up next, and I could time the slides really well with what I was saying. Number 4, tech failures. This is almost guaranteed to happen to you at some point during your speech, and it's really easy to get thrown by them, but my advice to you would be acknowledge them. The whole audience knows what's happening to you. Acknowledge them, laugh it off with a smile, and just keep going. That way your audience will not be wondering, "Oh, did she notice if that has happened? What's going on?" Acknowledge it, keep moving, keep them engaged. Number 5, now this is the most important one. Remember, no one in that room wants you to fail. They're turning up to hear what you have to say. They're turning up to listen to your speech. They want to learn something from you. They believe what you have to say is important. So go in there, bring your smiles, bring your energy, and enjoy being up on that stage and sharing your story. On to practical examples. So telling a story. You might have noticed at the beginning of this video, I didn't say, "Thank you so much for clicking play, thanks for coming to the channel, I'm glad you're here," or anything like that, even though I am, of course. I started off the video with a story, which is much more engaging. With my speeches, I often start off with a story about my dad, shoes, and customer service, and I find that audiences respond so much better to that. On to eliminating fears. I mentioned that I used to write out all of my speeches word for word before going up on stage. Here's what my notes used to look like. And next up, knowing your content. Here's what my notes look like when I'm trying to just prompt myself with knowing what the next slide is and what is on it. Acknowledging tech failures. Well, in my last talk, in fact, we had a massive tech failure with my slides and the word shoes got scrambled. So this is what the slide looked like. Pretty embarrassing. So I looked at the slide, looked at the audience and said, "That is definitely not what we sell." Everybody laughed and then I got on with the talk. Now, lastly and most importantly, knowing that everyone in the room wants you to succeed. So walk onto that stage with that positive mind frame because you will deliver a much better speech if you're up there with a big smile on your face. Go up there and go for it. So there are my top 5 tips for getting through my most nervous moments of public speaking. It can be so terrifying, but you'll be great. You might have some tips or questions. Please put them into the comments below. I would love to learn from you. Also, I'll have another video up soon. If you want to subscribe, please go for it. And otherwise, have a great week. And remember, do everything before you're ready. Bye. Oh my.